Put on your hard hat and buckle up that tool belt. It's time for some heavy-duty conversation about all things construction. Welcome to Tommy's ToolBox, the podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Whitehead. I'm also the CEO of TomCo Solutions, a full-service building, renovation, and storm restoration contractor based here in Tampa, Florida. Sitting with me at the drafting table today is Bradley Roach, public adjuster of Region Adjusting, to discuss assessing construction claims. Welcome, Bradley. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Tommy.
Absolutely. It's always a wonderful time to see you, Brad. Love to have you here. So we're going to segue into something we're calling your foundation. So I want to know a little bit more about you today, all right?
Okay.
All right. Bradley, tell me about yourself. Where are you from? What kind of interested you in the industry?
Yeah, so I was originally born in Panama City, Florida, but I've lived all over the United States. I call Tampa, Florida my home. So what first interested me in the industry actually was I had a client who I was working with in my previous job in like transportation, and I had been working with a public adjuster, the owner of this firm actually, and you know, she was talking to me day in and day out about all the issues that she was having and challenges that she was facing, like trying to get her insurance claim paid. And then about a month later, you know, the owner of this firm gets involved, and then suddenly everything starts moving. And she just had a ton of great things to say about how he was able to help her through that very challenging time where she was displaced.
That's wonderful. So it's almost like you're starting to help people. That's one of the attractions of this.
Oh, absolutely.
That's pretty cool. You don't really think about that in the insurance industry. It really is there to kind of like help people. Bradley, did you have a role model or a mentor that kind of helped guide you in this path in this career?
Yeah, absolutely. So the owner of our firm, after that situation, I sat down with him and I needed to know more because that homeowner, she went from this position of just total disarray, being displaced from her home, and then in a very short amount of time was able to get put back together again and just had this great feeling of guidance. And I just sat down with him and I was like, you need to teach me to do what you just did.
Wow. Yeah. What many people don't realize is when you have a loss, it's kind of like a violation of your personal space, and you feel very uneven, and so you help people get back to normal.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the whole thing. I mean, especially when you've gone through something like that, you got to think about the emotional side of things. You know, you're displaced. Maybe you and your family and your dog, your children, you have to figure out where you can live in the meantime. You know, you're spending all this money. You don't know if you're going to get it reimbursed or not. You don't know what you can do, what you should do. So to be able to come into someone's home after they've experienced a loss like that and just sit down with them at the dinner table and just walk them through what they can do, what they should be doing, and just the correct way to approach a loss, it's just such a great feeling.
That's awesome. That must feel wonderful. So tell me a little bit about what drives you. What's the favorite part of your day? What do you consider a successful day?
Yeah, so it's definitely being able to help somebody. Particularly with this most recent flood, a lot of these homeowners, we were walking into their homes and you'd have somebody who was maybe elderly or seniors trying to move all of their own furniture out of their home, trying to cut their own drywall to start drying out their home, and they don't realize that, you know, you can get a dry out company in there to do that for you. So you're not having to, you know, risk injury to yourself, risk doing it incorrectly, and you can actually get help.
That's amazing. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that there's people out there to help you. Bradley, you're a public adjuster. Could you explain to somebody what is a public adjuster? Like, who do you work for? What do you do? Could you just give us a little more information about what public adjusters do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what we are as public adjusters is we are actually licensed by the state of Florida to represent the homeowner in their best interests. So I do not work for an insurance company. I cannot work for an insurance company while I am a public adjuster because it's my role essentially to be on the homeowner side of things.
Bradley, I'd love for you to tell us why what you do is important. We know what you do now, but why is it so important?
Yeah, so I would say it's incredibly important to have a public adjuster. One, just to make sure that you're actually going to be doing all the things that you need to do to report a claim officially. I'm sure you know this, but a lot of people don't. If you don't actually follow through with all of your duties after a loss, your insurance company has no duty to perform by any length of time. So just by us going in, making sure that you filed the claim properly and that we have done an accurate assessment of everything that you're owed and a full review of your policy to make sure that nothing is left out, just to get you everything that you're really entitled to after a loss.
Bradley, you told us a lot about the documentation, the checklist, the things that you have to do to process a homeowner's claim. Would you say if all that is there, if you have everything together the first go around, that the claim might process a little faster, that you might get back to normal a little faster?
Yeah, it definitely could be. I mean, it could at least start the process a lot sooner. And really our main goal with documentation is just to make sure that we're presenting the claim really truthfully, but too in its most favorable state, because I see this all the time where homeowners, they'll take this information, and because they're not an experienced contractor, they may speculate. The homeowner may begin to speculate, and when they do that, they're drawing this conclusion that's just not in line with what a contractor agrees the problem is, and now they're relaying that information to their insurance company, and they don't know any better. They're thinking that they're being told the right thing, but now we're facing a denial when ultimately there should have been coverage here.
Okay, and that probably causes confusion because now you're changing your story with the insurance company, but you're not really changing your story. You just weren't informed properly before. And now that you are informed properly, I would think that you have to communicate that to the insurance company, and they're going to ask, well, why did you inform us incorrectly the first time?
Exactly. Whereas the other way, you could have just gotten a professional in there, really found the true cause of the problem, and then present the correct information from a professional to the insurance company.
Now we're going to move on to stud finders. This is a fun little segment or section of the podcast here. I would love for you to tell me the name of a person or a company that is kind of really seen as being on top of their game, and why.
So yeah, that's a great question, actually. So a big issue that's going on right now in the St. Petersburg area is we just had that storm surge, and there's all this flooding, and especially in the Short Acres community. Now, they use a policy. It's the National Flood Insurance Program. There's one policy, and because it's underwritten by the federal government instead of Florida, a totally different set of regulations apply. So what we're running into frequently is a lot of dry out companies in particular, since they're the first ones acting on the claim, they're getting in there in an emergency situation. These companies don't understand these guidelines with FEMA, so they're presenting bills that are not being accepted. So what really impressed me recently was Samuel Biggs with All Dry Services. He had actually reached out to our firm at the beginning of this storm because he's heard of companies having these types of issues, and he wanted to make sure that his homeowners were taken care of. And so we actually sat down with him. He learned a ton of information about how to present these bills in a way that FEMA is really going to pay for them, and really how they want these bills presented. I was very impressed by that.
That's wonderful. I've actually met Samuel multiple times. I know him quite well, and it's great to hear his name pop up in a conversation because he is a really skilled professional.
Absolutely.
So, okay, what forward-thinking innovations are you most excited about right now in the industry?
Oh, definitely. So I am very impressed with a lot of the 3D like scanning and 3D virtual walkthrough technology in there. So our firm, we recently invested in like a Matterport camera.
Okay.
And so previously we used to have to take measurements of the entire home. We'd have to take hundreds and hundreds of pictures. Whereas now we just bring a camera in there, and it's literally a full scan of your entire home, takes accurate measurements, and you can literally sit on your computer, click into the space, and it's like you're in there in person. So that is super invaluable when you're trying to document a claim accurately. And in fact, we recently just were able to use that to prove that this homeowner's slab was cracking from the flooding because we had a Matterport scan of the room, and then this homeowner had documented the changes when they got there about a week later. So it was just undisputable that it was from the flood. It was excellent.
That's amazing. So if you're trying to communicate with me, if I'm the insurance company and I'm sitting at a desk somewhere out of state, because that's where we're stationed, you can literally walk through the house with them when they're sitting in a computer in a whole other state. They literally can click and go to the next room. That's how that works, isn't it?
It's exactly how it works. And Tommy, you're bringing up a great point there where the people who are actually making coverage decisions, who are deciding whether you're going to get paid for this or not, they're not necessarily going to be the people in the field more often than not. They're going to be what's called a desk adjuster. So that's going to be somebody his whole job is to work at the desk. He's going to be reviewing the pictures that come over to him through email and then try to piece together the claim. And we used to always make the joke that we had to be professional photographers too, because it's very difficult to try to explain to somebody who may not even be in the same state what you're seeing there in person. So by having this type of technology, it's really preventing conflict, because now there's a lot less miscommunication.
Wow, that's almost as good as having him right there in person. Yeah, that sounds almost like that. That's great. Awesome. Where do you think the industry is going?
Yeah, so I'm definitely seeing the industry begin to move more towards public adjusters, because again, we're very accessible. We're trying to be there on scene as quickly as possible, and actually on site trying to document the loss. So we might be a little bit more accessible than your insurance company will when they've experienced some type of disaster.
So you try to respond like immediately after the disaster, or as soon as it's safe to get back to the home, you try to be there right away?
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as possible, we're trying to at least start to respond when it's safe. Now, when we first approach like a disaster situation, like our main goal is not to just try to sign hundreds of customers. What we do when that first happens is we actually have this packet that we've prepared, and we'll sit down with these homeowners and really kind of explain the claims process. And we don't even bring a contract with us those first few days, because all we'd want to do is we want to sit down, educate you on everything that's about to happen in your life. We leave you with this packet of information that just explains the claims process to you in layman's terms from cradle to grave. And if you still need our help a few days down the line, great. If not, I feel better about myself knowing that you actually have some type of playbook.
And if they say, hey, I just don't think this is for me,
then that's A-okay too.
That's wonderful. That seems like, you're actually trying to help people. You're not just trying to force a sale on them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people see that too. And when you can really approach someone and just come from a position of helpfulness instead of just trying to like hard sell them something, especially like a public adjuster, most people don't really know what this is or have ever heard about it previously. So we end up getting a lot of business just from word of mouth referrals.
How does your firm make the claims process easier for a homeowner that's had a loss?
Yeah, so our firm, we essentially are going to manage the claim from just start to finish. So we're not like other public adjusting firms that may just be going in there and just focusing on that dollar amount. I'm focusing on guiding you throughout the entire process, like literally from not just the insurance perspective, but also the construction perspective, like getting you put back together. So our firm, we actually have it's called a preferred vendor program, where we have this agreement where so long as you use any of these companies that we have actually vetted, we trust them with insurance money, we have verified their quality of work, these companies agree to do the work for a reasonable amount that we get approved by your insurance carrier, minus our contingency fee. So our homeowners only end up having to come out of pocket just their deductible, and then they get professional representation throughout the claims process.
That's incredible. That sounds like a great service you offer.
Yeah, it really is. And you'll see it all the time too, where, homeowners may have a contractor who just doesn't understand what's covered or what's not covered. And he may try to demand payment for things that, I may not be reasonable, are definitely not going to be covered by your insurance. And now that's kind of putting you here in the middle as someone who's not a construction expert, with your contractor may be demanding, let's just use round numbers, 40 grand, and your insurance only wanting to pay 35 grand.
So based on what you're telling me, it sounds like you're kind of like a coach or a cheerleader for the claim process. The homeowner can contact you and ask for advice, ask for information and updates, and even ask for maybe recommendations for vendors that you've used. And so you kind of help them from soup to nuts, just try to get back. Is that kind of an accurate
that's totally accurate. I mean, we call it quarterbacking every day, where we just try to get in there, make sure that they understand, but then also make sure that they're getting connected with reputable contractors, who are going to do quality work at reasonable prices to get them put back together as quickly as possible.
Okay, we can't have a podcast without just a tad bit of humor in it, so we're just going to try a little bit. So don't be too funny, okay? But this next segment is called Ratchet It Up. It's the humor portion of our show, and what I want to know is, what is the craziest mistake you've ever heard of in the industry?
That's a great question, Tommy. So this was a very recent occurrence. I'd walked into this kitchen, and just the feng shui was off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it.
You can't have bad feng shui.
Oh, no. And, I was looking in their kitchen, and I was like, what happened? And the homeowner was like, well, my previous contractor, they had put my baseboards on my upper cabinets.
Oh.
And then you look at it a little bit closer and you notice there's a 3-inch gap, between the cabinet and the baseboards. It just, you couldn't unsee it.
That's crazy. Bradley, thanks for a job well done. Thank you so much for joining us today on Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. If you have any questions about my company, TomCo Solutions, the construction industry, real estate investing, or disaster restoration, please reach out to us at tomcosolutions.com. My contact information is in the episode description, and I'll put Bradley's information there as well. We'd both love to hear from you. Till next time, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you all at the construction site for the next episode of Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. Have a great day, everybody.